here are, according to 2023 per capita data, the 5 deadliest, most dangerous cities in America. Memphis is number 1. New Orleans, number 2. Baltimore, number 3. Detroit, number 4. Philadelphia, number 5. Per capita, 5 most dangerous, deadly, murder-ridden cities in America. And Ben Ferguson joins us now. Ben, I've spent a decent amount of time in Memphis because I'm just up the road in Nashville.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time you spent in Memphis. Were you born and raised there? How much time did you spend there?
Dude, born and raised my whole life there, and my parents are still there. All my staff that runs my show, and my show is still out of Memphis, and I split time obviously between there and Texas. But I mean, these numbers, as scary as they are, it's not even shocking enough to how bad it is in Memphis right now because of an activist DA that's basically said, I got elected because I took Soros money. I got elected because I'm in favor of prison reform and bail reform, and I'm going to let out criminals. Part of this is reparations, he believes, as it's like the OJ thing yesterday, right? OJ, yeah, we know he killed some people, but it was payback for Rodney King, and it was payback for, he deserved to get out because it was a way to kind of right wrongs of the past. That's Mulroy's mentality. I'll give you an example. I had a dear friend of mine that was murdered. It was a mentor of mine that was murdered in Memphis. And they basically said, we don't have the resources to find the murderer after a couple of days. We have to move on. You have this is last year's numbers, you have a 76.3% chance of getting away with murdering someone in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, why do I give you that stat? Because that's what percentage went unsolved of the murders in Memphis last year. So you basically, 3 out of every 4 people that are killed, you're going to walk, and you're going to get to do it again, and they will not catch you. Let me give you another example of what happened just a few weeks ago. There was a woman who was shot 4 times by her boyfriend. The boyfriend was out back on the streets of Memphis, had gotten cashless bail in essence because he was poor, which is part of this radical agenda of George Soros, while she was still in life-saving surgery at the Med, which is a level 1 trauma center. So imagine you're the police. You catch the guy that shoots this woman, right? You risk your life to catch a gunman. And then you rush this woman to the hospital to try to save her life. She's still in surgery, and that guy's back out on the streets of Memphis. This is what's happening all over the country, is that they're basically saying, we want you to not go to jail. We want to let criminals out of jail that are in jail because we're playing this race card, which Soros has said is very clear the intent here. And people like Steve Mulroy are saying, I don't lock you up unless there's a dead body. If you shoot somebody and they're still alive, you're going to get out for maybe $100 or less.
It's unbelievable. We're speaking to Ben Ferguson, our friend and co-host of the Verdict podcast with Ted Cruz. Ben, I mean, I know you owned a barbecue joint in Memphis for many years, a firing range for many years. I mean, you've been tied in with the business community there as well. You grew up there, and you yourself had to use a firearm in defense of your life. What happened?
Yeah, there was the Mid-South Fair, and I was leaving the fair with my best friend, and it was a gang initiation. I was the target of the gang initiation. It's called having blood in the gang, and how it works is they pick a target that there's someone they want to kill, and then that means that if you ever get caught doing a crime, you're not going to flip or narc on other gang members because they know when and where you killed somebody, which is what having blood in the gang is. Luckily, I had a firearm with me. I was able to shoot back and save my own life. But what's even more shocking is they ended up catching the 2 guys. Both of them.
Wait, Ben. I'm sorry. Hold on. But they fired at you. Were they in a car? I mean, what? How did this go down? I walked out of my best friend's house. There were blue lights that were basically ricocheting in the windows where we were. We were that close to fair where they were directing traffic down the street. 2 houses down, they were charging $20 to park in their driveway and their front lawn. So that's how close you were to law enforcement directing traffic. 2 guys got out of a car. They started walking towards us. Before I could draw, they had lifted their guns up, and both of them racked around in their semi-automatic pistols so that you knew that it was real and you knew there was a bullet in the chamber. They hit us in the face, slammed us up against the car. Now, luckily, from riding the rides that night, I had my keys, my wallet, and my cell phone in my front pocket. They never reached around back, and that was a blessing, because if they would have felt my gun, I don't know what would have happened before I could get it. And so there was families that were walking by us with kids in strollers, and the guy had the gun to my head, and he put it down to my side, and he told me to shake his blanking hand. And I had to shake the hand of the guy that is, robbing me and putting a gun literally to my head. And as they turned to walk away, and this is how you get blood in the gang, they grinned at each other. They're about 5 feet away. They turned around. They raised up. Now, I'd pulled my gun behind my leg, and I raised up, and we started shooting. And luckily, for the grace of God, I was not hit. My friend was not hit. And those two gang members took off running as they were shooting at us. And the police came, and they were like, okay, we actually didn't even call 911. We ran down the street, and this tells you about the mentality of the police and how, I think, just downtrodden they are. They're in Memphis right now, depending on whose stats you look at, they're either 900 to 1,400 police officers below what they should be. And I ran to a police officer, and I looked at him. I said, I just got shot at. And I'm shaking. And he said, yeah, we heard the gunshots. And he looked at me, and he said, that's not my job. I'll call somebody. Didn't move, didn't react. He said, literally, that's not my job. Now, my dad's in law enforcement, full disclosure. Has been in law enforcement most of his career in Memphis. So you can imagine my shock seeing a police officer tell me that's not his job. And now I understand why he said that. He's not going to go die, because if he goes and grabs those guys, they're going to be right back out on the streets, which is exactly what happened, Clam Buck. They ended up catching them 2 weeks later. Not only did they catch them, I had to go testify at a parole hearing for a prior attempted murder charge against one of the two guys. The gang members came to 201 Poplar, which is the courthouse, got in the elevator with me and my friend, and threatened to murder us in the elevator. Full-on scuffle. I'm talking a fight. We got out of the elevator at the courthouse. We were able to open the doors. They held us for an hour and a half, and we were told by the judge after they held us, they said, hey, just so you know, this is normal. This is what they do. They come and they intimidate witnesses so they won't testify against them. They basically run the court system down here, and they have great attorneys that take care of them and protect them, and that's how the gangs work in Memphis. And this is who Steve Mulroy basically works for. He takes his direction as a Soros DA from these gangs. It's no different than a cartel. And then they both got plea deals. I was never asked as a victim of the crime. I got a letter in the mail. No one called me from the DA's office to say they were going to do the deal. So I go to the mailbox. Imagine this has happened to you. You've then been your life threatened. They know your address. They've told you that if you testify against them, they're going to murder you. And then you get a letter in the mail from the DA's office that says they pleaded out 5.6 years and 4.7 years for these crimes, where the only reason why you're alive is because God protected you, you shot back, and you saved your own life, in essence, and God protected us. It was amazing, because when you're shooting 5 feet away, how do you not get hit, right? It's a blessing. But that's what happened, and sure enough, they went to prison, and they got out early, and they committed future crimes. It's a revolving door. But if you're a police officer now, and this goes back to defund the police, and I've witnessed it firsthand, if you can't deliberately defund the police, what they're now doing, and these activist DAs and Mulroy and others are doing, is they're basically saying to the cops, you're an idiot if you go risk your life to lock someone up, because we're going to let them right back out. So the police officers are being defunded because the judges and these activist DAs are basically mocking them. So why would you want to risk your life to lock up a bad guy if you know that you're not actually locking him up? This is the reason why you're down 900 to 1,200, 1,300 officers in Memphis and other places like New Orleans and Baltimore and Detroit and St. Louis. You literally make the police go insane to the point where they say, okay, I'm not going to die or risk my life dying to lock someone up who's not actually going to be locked up, because we're not locking up bad guys. It's a revolving door. And now you look at bail in Memphis. There's a large population. Memphis is poor. And you come in, they say, do you have any money? And you say no. And they go, okay, well, then we're going to let you out for shooting this guy for $100. And they walk out the same day.
Okay,
before the paperwork's been done.
We're talking to Ben Ferguson. You hear him on Verdict. You grew up in Memphis. I grew up in Nashville. You probably remember, as I do, there was a rivalry between those two cities in the 80s and the 90s over which city was
Oh, yeah.
better. Now Nashville has skyrocketed. It's boomed. It's everything is going pretty fantastic here. Memphis has fallen by the wayside. Let's pretend you suddenly got basically dictatorial powers. What would have to happen for Memphis to get fixed? What needs to happen as a longtime Memphian? What do they need to do that they're not doing now?
Yeah, I told the Shelby County Sheriff ran for mayor, and I sat down with him. I said, I will give you unlimited free advice because I want you to win. And I said, if I was, I had people when I lived there that said, Ben, you need to run. And I genuinely thought about it, pulled a petition once. But what I realized was I was white, so I wasn't going to get elected, and I was a Republican, so I wasn't going to get elected. And I told him, I said, you're a Democrat, you're African American, you care about this city, and you know the crime. I said, what I would do is I would say immediately, number one, I would declare a state of emergency with crime. And I would have a curfew for 18 and under immediately in the city. I would then immediately tell the citizens, I'm leaving Memphis every day to go recruit police officers in other cities until we get the numbers at 20% above what we need them to be, until we get this city basically locked down and the criminals understand this is not the city you want to commit a crime in because we're coming after you. And I said, and third, you immediately go to Nashville and you go to the governor and other elected state reps and state senators and you say, I need truth in sentencing laws. I need a 3 strikes you're out program that doesn't have to be a full strike for shoplifting. That can be a half a strike, right? It can be sensible law enforcement. But you basically say, I'm going to have to go around you. And then most importantly, if you want to change a city, you've got to get rid of these judges that are activist judges that believe their job is not to hold people accountable. They believe their job is to basically right the wrongs of the past and to let African Americans that are committing these crimes out of jail because it's basically payback, like we just heard about with O.J. Simpson. Well, he deserved to get out because of the wrongs of the past and Rodney King. And you go after these judges. The biggest problem we have now in these cities is most people don't know who their judges are. I'm guilty of that. I think you guys probably don't know who your criminal court judges are. And they're no longer... This is more important than any other position in your city is your judges, because there are judges that see people that commit heinous crimes, that rape people, that beat people, that shoot people, and they don't die. These medical professionals save their life, and they say, okay, are you poor? Yes. Well, then you get to walk out of here today. We'll see you later. And they commit more crimes, and they laugh and mock the police. But I told them, I said, you have to basically be a psychopath in fighting crime for your first year in office. And if you want to change this, you're going to have to go and find good officers and pay them incredible salaries and bonuses to get them to come protect your city, because they're not going to do it for what you're paying them now. And they're not going to do it if they're going to let these people out of jail immediately when you lock them up. And he looked at me, he's like, okay, I think you're right. He goes, but I don't know how that's going to play with the Democratic Party. And I'm like, there's enough people here that don't feel safe. People don't feel safe in my hometown of Memphis. And I love that city, but it's not safe.
Yeah, it's Ben, look, really appreciate your perspective on this one. Exactly what we wanted to dive into with you so we can really know what's going on there. Ben Ferguson, everybody, check out Verdict with Ted Cruz and Ben Ferguson. Ben, my friend, we will talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Look, I'm a big believer in the right to bear arms. You want to be able to defend yourself, defend your home, and you also want to be tactically proficient, right? And so you want to have the right tools for the job. That's where Bear Creek Arsenal comes in. Bear Creek Arsenal is a company you might not have heard of before in the firearms industry, but you should, because let me tell you, they make incredible products. I just took one of their ARs, and I'm going to be out at the range with it this weekend. I'm also going to be picking up a pistol from Bear Creek Arsenal and telling you how that goes. But so far, I am telling you, these are incredibly well-made firearms that are at a really competitive price. Bear Creek Arsenal. They offer a wide range of premium calibers at a fraction of what the competition does. So how does Bear Creek do it? No middleman fees. That's how. I've got some of the super expensive handguns and ARs out there, and I've got Bear Creek Arsenal. Let me tell you, Bear Creek Arsenal can go toe-to-toe with the most expensive rifles on the market, and you're getting it at such a better price. Go online to bearcreekarsenal.com/buck. That's bearcreekarsenal.com/buck. Use my name, Buck, as your promo code for 10% off your first order. That's bearcreekarsenal.com/Buck. Use my name, Buck, and get 10% off your first order.